Anna sat in her car, gazing out the window as the soft sunlight filtered through the clouds. Today was a special day. She, a 45-year-old woman who had spent the last many years raising her children alone and rebuilding her life after a bitter divorce, was about to face her past. After all these years, she was finally going to meet James, her ex-husband, the man she had divorced over 15 years ago. Anna had changed in ways she hadn't imagined. Her once vibrant hair now carried streaks of gray, her skin not as smooth as it once had been, but her eyes remained bright and resilient. She was a woman who had fought through the pain, raised her children, and rebuilt her life with her own strength. Now here she was, a woman of experience and resolve, standing on the edge of a meeting that could bring back a flood of emotions. She took a deep breath, a quiet sigh escaping her lips. The meeting wasn't just about reconnecting with someone from her past. It was a confrontation with the person she used to be, the one who had once loved James and dreamed of a life with him. Those dreams had crumbled long ago, leaving her to pick up the pieces. Now she was prepared to face him, different, stronger, and more certain of who she had become. As she stepped out of the car, she felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't a simple reunion. It was a chance to confront unresolved emotions, to understand how far they had both come, and perhaps, to come to terms with the past. But Anna wasn't sure what to expect. Would they be the same people they were when they first met? Or had time and experience turned them into strangers? She walked toward the cafe with measured steps, each one bringing her closer to the man she once called her husband. She could feel her heart racing, a mixture of excitement, uncertainty, and the tiniest hint of fear. What would this encounter reveal? What emotions would it stir? And most importantly, was she ready to face them? As she entered the cafe, she saw him sitting at a table near the window. James. He looked different, older, but the moment she saw him, she felt a rush of memories flood back. His hair, now thinner and streaked with gray, no longer held the same thick dark color it once had. His face, though still kind, bore the marks of age and experience. He wasn't the man she had divorced, but he wasn't a stranger either. James, Anna said softly, her voice trembling just slightly as she approached him. He looked up, his face breaking into a smile. Anna, he replied, his voice warm but with a hint of hesitation. It's been a long time. The years had passed, but in that moment, it felt like nothing had changed. They were both still there, carrying the weight of their shared past, yet different, perhaps even better versions of themselves, molded by the time apart. James stood up, and they exchanged a quiet embrace, one that was both familiar and strange. As they sat down and began to talk, the awkwardness of the moment soon faded. They both tried to catch up on what had happened over the years, but the weight of their past hung heavily in the air between them. Anna couldn't help but wonder if things could have been different, if they had been different people back then. She had built a life without him, raising their daughter alone, carving out a future for herself that was stronger than the one she had imagined in her youth. But meeting James now, she couldn't shake the question, had they made the right decision all those years ago? The conversation drifted, touching on the past but always circling back to the present. They both shared stories of their lives, his marriage to another woman, her journey of single motherhood and self-discovery. They both acknowledged the distance, the changes, and yet, there was something unspoken between them. A connection, perhaps a lingering thread of their shared history that neither of them could quite sever. Anna listened carefully, trying to hear the man in front of her, not the man from her past. She realized then that time hadn't just changed him, it had changed her too. The woman she was now was not the same one who had married him, nor the one who had divorced him. She was someone new, someone who had learned to find strength in herself. And yet, despite all the changes, despite the years, part of her still missed him. Not the man he was, but the man she had loved, the man she had believed in. But this wasn't about the past. It wasn't about what could have been. This was about two people years removed from each other, sitting across from one another, trying to understand how their lives had unfolded since they parted ways. As they spoke, Anna knew that this meeting wasn't about rekindling anything. It was about understanding, about closure, and about finding peace with the person she had become, and with the man who had once been her everything. "I've changed," James said, his voice tinged with both regret and acceptance. Anna nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "So have I." And as the conversation continued, Anna realized something profound. Sometimes, the second chance we seek isn't about reclaiming something lost. It's about finding the strength to move forward, accepting what is, and appreciating the journey that has led us to this point. For the first time in years, Anna felt a sense of calm. The past, with all its pain and love, was where it belonged, behind her. What mattered now was the life she had built, the woman she had become, and the future that lay ahead. Anna adjusted herself in her seat, smoothing down the front of her blouse as she nervously glanced around the cafe. The clock ticked in the background, and every second felt like an eternity. Today wasn't just any ordinary meeting, it was the first time in over 15 years that she would see James again. The man she once loved. The man she once thought she would grow old with. A part of her had imagined this moment for years, wondering how things would unfold if they ever crossed paths again. Would they pick up where they left off, or would it be too awkward, too painful? Now, as the moment grew nearer, Anna realized she wasn't sure what she was hoping for. She wasn't the same woman anymore, and neither was he. She caught sight of him walking through the door, and her heart skipped a beat. James. He was older, of course, with a few more lines on his face, the dark hair she remembered now tinged with gray. The youthful glow he had once carried was no longer there, but he still had that same presence, that calm demeanor that had once made her feel safe. It took her a moment to recognize him fully, so much had changed, yet the core of him remained. James spotted her almost immediately and smiled, that familiar smile that she hadn't seen in years. The warmth in his eyes was unmistakable, but there was something different about it now. Anna couldn't tell if it was regret, or maybe just the recognition of a shared past that both of them had tried so hard to move on from. "Anna," he said softly, taking the seat across from her. There was a hint of hesitation in his voice, but there was something comforting in his tone. "It's really good to see you." Anna smiled, though her heart was racing. She hadn't prepared herself for the rush of emotions that came flooding in. The years of silence, the many nights of unanswered questions, and all the pain she had buried in her heart, it was as though it all rushed back at once. But she fought to keep her composure, and after a moment, she found her voice. "You look good, James," she said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "It's been a long time." He nodded, looking down at his hands briefly before meeting her gaze again. "Yeah, I've changed a lot." He gave a small chuckle, but it lacked the usual confidence he once had. "I think we both have." Anna's eyes softened. She could see it now, how much he had aged, how much life had worn on him. She had spent so many years imagining this meeting, fantasizing about what it would be like to see him again, but reality had a way of bringing things into sharper focus. She had lived without him for so long that she wasn't sure who he was anymore. She wasn't even sure who she was when she was with him. "Well, we can't exactly stop time, can we?" Anna said with a wry smile. James let out a deep breath. "No, we can't." He paused for a moment, seemingly gathering his thoughts before speaking again. I'm sorry for everything, Anna. For how things ended between us." Anna's heart tightened at the apology. It wasn't the first time she had heard those words, but now, coming from him after all these years, they carried a weight that was hard to ignore. "It's not just your fault, James," she replied, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. "We both played a part in the end of everything. It wasn't just you." He nodded, his expression one of sorrow. "I should have fought harder. I should have listened to you more. Instead, I let things slip away." Anna stared at him, wondering if he truly understood the full extent of their breakdown. "It wasn't just about fighting, James. It was about growing apart. We were both so caught up in our own lives and problems that we didn't even see how far we drifted until it was too late." James looked down, clearly lost in his own thoughts. The silence between them grew heavy, filled with memories and unspoken words. The years had given them both a new perspective, but some things still lingered. The old wounds, the pain of broken promises, the loneliness they had both felt, they didn't go away just because time had passed. "I didn't want to leave you," James said quietly, his voice strained. "I just didn't know how to fix things. I was scared. And I didn't think you needed me anymore." Anna's eyes softened as she processed his words. She remembered how, over time, she had begun to feel like an island, alone and misunderstood. She didn't blame him entirely, but there had been moments, especially after their daughter was born, when she felt abandoned. The years of struggling on her own, of trying to hold everything together, had left scars that ran deep. "I needed you, James," Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I didn't know how to make you see that. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when it wasn't." "I'm sorry," James whispered. He reached across the table, but Anna pulled back slightly, unsure of how to react. I've been trying to make sense of it all, Anna. I've changed. I hope you can see that. Anna took a deep breath, glancing out the window for a moment to collect herself. The world outside seemed to carry on as if nothing had changed, but inside, everything had shifted. She wasn't the same woman she had been when she married James, and neither was he. The past had shaped them, molded them into who they were today. But was there room for them to be anything more than strangers connected by a shared history? I can see that, Anna finally said, turning back to him. But that doesn't mean we can just go back to how things were. James lowered his gaze, nodding in understanding. I don't expect that, Anna. I just wanted to see you again. To talk. I never wanted to hurt you. Anna smiled, though it was bittersweet. I know. I've had years to forgive you, James. But I think the one thing I need to forgive most is myself. The conversation drifted after that. They spoke about their children, the years that had passed, and the changes they had both gone through. There was a comfort in the dialogue, a sense of mutual respect that hadn't been there when they were married. Yet beneath the surface, there was still a distance between them, one neither of them knew how to cross. As the meeting came to a close, Anna stood, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. She had done it, she had faced the past and found a way to move on. It wasn't about rekindling what was lost, but about accepting what had been, and finding peace with the person she had become. I'm glad we met, James, she said softly. But this is where we say goodbye. He nodded, standing up to embrace her one last time. Goodbye, Anna. Take care of yourself. As Anna walked out of the cafe, she felt a quiet sense of relief. She had finally confronted the past, but she knew it was time to look forward. It was time to live her life, on her terms. The days after the reunion had been quieter than Anna had expected. She had braced herself for a wave of emotions, memories flooding back, tears, and the endless questions of what might have been. But as the days passed, Anna found herself surprisingly calm. Her life was still the same, filled with the same responsibilities, the same routines. But there was something new now. A sense of closure, a quiet acceptance of the past. She had finally seen James again, and now, there was a peace she hadn't realized she was searching for. Yet, despite the calm, something had shifted in her. She found herself looking at her reflection more carefully, as if she were seeing herself for the first time. She had spent so many years caring for others, her children, her work, her community, that she hadn't stopped to consider her own needs and desires. She was always moving forward, putting one foot in front of the other, simply trying to get through the days. But now, after meeting James, it was like she could finally breathe. Sitting in her favorite chair by the window, Anna sipped her tea and thought back to their conversation. There was no grand revelation, no magic moment where everything clicked into place. But there had been something undeniably healing in it. She had confronted the man who had once been her world, and now, she could finally let go. She had spent so many years blaming James for everything that went wrong. But now, after hearing his regrets and apologies, she realized that it wasn't just his fault. The breakdown of their marriage was a combination of things: miscommunication, unmet needs, and perhaps, the simple reality that they had grown apart. They had both contributed to the end, and both of them had hurt each other. But now, it was time to move on. Anna placed the cup back on the table and leaned back, staring out the window at the bustling street below. Life went on, regardless of the past. She had spent so long stuck in a loop of anger and resentment, but now, she was ready to break free. She had built a new life for herself, and it was time to embrace it fully. The next few days were filled with reflection. Anna found herself reconnecting with old hobbies, things she had put aside for so long. She rejoined the book club she had once been so passionate about, started practicing yoga again, and even began to cook more elaborate meals. She had always enjoyed cooking, but in the chaos of raising children and managing everything on her own, it had become just another task. Now it was something she could do for herself, something that brought her joy. Her children were growing up, and her role as a mother was shifting. Her son was away at college, and her daughter had begun to show signs of independence as well. Anna couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and sadness at how quickly time had passed. It seemed like only yesterday they had been small children, needing her for everything. Now, they were both finding their own paths. But despite all the changes, there was still something missing. Something Anna had yet to figure out. She had spent so many years wrapped up in the responsibilities of life that she hadn't stopped to ask herself what she truly wanted. The questions kept popping up, uninvited, each time she was alone with her thoughts. What was she truly seeking now? Was it companionship? Adventure? Or something entirely different? It was late one evening when Anna's phone buzzed with a message from James. It had been a week since their meeting, and she hadn't expected to hear from him again. She had assumed that their conversation had closed the chapter for both of them. The message was short, just a simple, "I've been thinking about our conversation. I hope you're doing well." Anna stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the reply button. She wasn't sure what she felt, whether it was curiosity, pity, or something else entirely. She had left things open-ended with James, but she wasn't sure if there was anything left to say. She had moved on from the anger, but she didn't know if there was space for him in her life anymore. With a deep breath, she typed a reply, trying to keep it light but honest. "I'm doing okay. It's been a lot to process, but I think I'm finally at peace with everything." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. It felt good to be honest with him. To acknowledge that, while their past was something they both carried with them, it didn't define who they were now. She didn't expect an immediate reply, but it came quickly. James's message was simple, and yet it spoke volumes. "I'm glad to hear that. I think I'm at peace too. I just wanted to say thank you, Anna. For everything." Anna sat back in her chair, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. The conversation didn't change anything, but it allowed her to finally let go. The days continued to pass, and Anna embraced her new life with a sense of openness she hadn't felt in years. There were moments of uncertainty, of course, who didn't have them? But now, she was learning to welcome those moments rather than fear them. She had spent so long trying to control everything around her, but now, she was learning to simply let things unfold. She continued to keep in touch with her friends, started going out more, and even began to entertain the idea of dating again. It was a strange feeling, the idea of being with someone else after all these years. But she couldn't deny that she was curious about what else the future might hold. She wasn't looking for someone to complete her, she was complete on her own. But the idea of sharing her life with someone, of finding companionship once again, was appealing. One evening, she received a call from her daughter, who was home for the weekend. They chatted about her classes, her friends, and the exciting new things she was discovering in her life. It was a reminder to Anna that her role as a mother was evolving too. The young woman who had once needed her for everything was now finding her own way, and Anna couldn't have been prouder. As the conversation ended, Anna hung up the phone and sat quietly for a moment. She had spent so many years holding on to the past, to what was lost, that she hadn't noticed how much she had gained. She had built a life for herself, one that was full of love, strength, and resilience. She didn't need anyone to tell her that she was enough, she already knew. And for the first time in a long while, Anna felt like she was truly ready for whatever came next. The next few weeks brought a new rhythm to Anna's life, one that she had not known for many years. The feeling of freedom was both exhilarating and strange. She spent her days revisiting parts of herself that had been buried under years of responsibility, motherhood, and the strain of a marriage that no longer fit. Every now and then, there would be a moment, an unexpected reminder, that the past wasn't as far behind her as she liked to think. One particular evening, as Anna was returning from a yoga class, she ran into her old friend, Margaret. Margaret had been one of her closest friends during her marriage to James. They had spent countless afternoons together, their children playing in the backyard while the women sat on the porch, sharing stories of their lives and their dreams. Margaret had been a confidant, someone Anna had turned to when things were tough. But after the divorce, their paths had diverged, and they had lost touch. "Anna, is that really you?" Margaret's voice was warm and inviting as she hurried across the street. She hadn't changed much, still the same vibrant, energetic woman Anna remembered. "Margaret," Anna said, smiling as they embraced. It felt good to reconnect with someone from the past, someone who knew her before the years of upheaval. After a few moments of catching up, Margaret's eyes twinkled mischievously. "I heard you had a run-in with James. How was it?" Anna felt a slight chill at the mention of his name. The conversation with James had lingered in her mind, but she hadn't shared many details with anyone. She wasn't sure how to talk about it, not yet. Not with someone who had witnessed their love and their struggles up close. "It was fine," Anna replied cautiously, looking away for a moment. We had a conversation. That's all. Nothing too dramatic, just closure. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Closure? I didn't think that word was in your vocabulary when it came to James. Anna chuckled softly, her gaze drifting to the ground. It wasn't, but I think I'm finally getting it. It's funny though, how much time can change a person. I hardly recognize the woman I used to be when I was with him. Margaret's expression softened as she listened. It's always hard, isn't it? Moving on from someone who was such a big part of your life. But you're right, people change. We change. And sometimes, we have to leave pieces of ourselves behind to grow. Anna nodded slowly, her mind drifting back to the years she spent with James. The things they had built together, the home, the dreams, the life they thought they would have. There had been a time when she had believed they were unstoppable, that they could face anything together. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and she hadn't been prepared for the way everything had unraveled. You know, Margaret continued, I was always so impressed by how you handled everything after the divorce. You were a rock for your kids, for your friends. But I think I can see now that maybe you've been holding on to a lot more than you've let on. Anna felt a pang of vulnerability at Margaret's words. She had never been one to show weakness, to admit that she was struggling. After the divorce, she had thrown herself into being a mother, into creating a life that was as close to normal as possible. She had built walls around her heart, kept everything locked away. The pain of losing James had been too much to bear, and she had dealt with it in the only way she knew how, by focusing on the future, by moving forward as if there was no past to revisit. But now, with Margaret's words hanging in the air, Anna realized how much she had been carrying all along. The weight of the past, the years of unhappiness, the regrets, the feelings of betrayal, had never really gone away. She had pushed them aside, pretending they didn't matter, but they were still there, buried deep inside her. I think I've been afraid to really look at it, Anna confessed, her voice quieter now. Afraid of what it might mean if I let myself feel all of it. The anger, the hurt. It's easier to just forget. Margaret's expression softened, and she gently placed a hand on Anna's shoulder. You don't have to bury it all, Anna. You can still move forward while letting go of the past. It's not about forgetting, but about accepting it. And maybe even forgiving yourself. Anna felt a lump form in her throat. Forgiving herself. That was the hardest part. She had always blamed herself for the breakdown of her marriage, for the ways she had failed. She had felt inadequate, like she wasn't enough for James, like she hadn't done enough to save their family. But now, with Margaret's words, Anna realized that perhaps she had been too hard on herself. Life was never as simple as black and white, and maybe, just maybe, the pieces of the puzzle that had once seemed so broken could be put together in a new way. The next day, Anna found herself alone in the park, walking slowly along the winding path, lost in thought. She thought about James again, about their conversation. She wondered how he was doing, if he was finding his own peace like she was trying to. But she couldn't focus on him anymore. He was part of the past, a chapter that had closed. It was time to turn the page and start the next one. Anna sat down on a bench, watching a couple of children chase each other through the grass. The sounds of their laughter were so innocent, so carefree. It made Anna think of the time before her marriage, before she had known the pain of divorce. She remembered what it was like to dream without limits, to believe in love without reservation. Could she feel that way again? Could she find that joy in herself once more? For the first time in a long while, Anna realized that she didn't need to have all the answers. She didn't need to know exactly where her life was heading or what it would look like. What mattered now was that she was moving forward, that she was allowing herself to heal. There was beauty in the unknown, in the uncertainty. And as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Anna finally felt like she was free. Free from the weight of her past, free from the expectations she had placed on herself. She could finally breathe, without the burden of what could have been. She stood up, a sense of calm settling over her. The future was waiting. And this time, she was ready to face it on her own terms. Anna woke up early that Saturday morning, the sun just beginning to peek through the curtains of her bedroom. The air outside was crisp, the promise of a new season hanging in the breeze. Fall had arrived, and with it, a sense of change. She had spent the last few weeks reflecting on everything, her past, her choices, her new life. But now it felt as if a new chapter was finally beginning, one she was ready to embrace with open arms. Her morning routine had become a grounding ritual for her. The quiet cup of coffee, the soft hum of the radio playing in the background, the time she gave herself to sit in peace before the world rushed in. She had learned to cherish these moments of solitude, of self-reflection, where she could simply be. Today, she planned to spend the day doing something for herself. It had been years since she had treated herself to anything, really treated herself. Anna was always the one doing for others, whether it was her children, her friends, or the responsibilities of work. But now, she realized that she needed to nurture herself too. She was more than just a mother or an ex-wife. She was a woman with desires, hopes, and dreams of her own. After a leisurely breakfast, Anna decided to visit a local art gallery that had recently opened in town. It had been years since she had been surrounded by art, a world she had once loved but had put aside in favor of practicality. She wanted to reignite that spark again. She wanted to remember what it felt like to be inspired, to see the beauty in life, in people, and in herself. The art gallery was small, tucked away on a quiet street that Anna had driven by 1,000 times but never really noticed. The exterior was unassuming, but as soon as she stepped inside, she was transported into a world of color, texture, and emotion. The walls were lined with vibrant paintings, abstract sculptures, and intricate photographs. There was a sense of intimacy in the space, as if each piece was inviting her to come closer, to explore its layers, its meaning. As she wandered through the exhibits, Anna found herself drawn to a painting in the far corner. It was a portrait of a woman, her face partially obscured by a veil of flowing fabric. The colors were rich, deep blues, fiery reds, and soft purples blending together in a swirling dance. The woman's expression was one of quiet contemplation, but there was strength in her eyes. Anna stood in front of the painting for what felt like an eternity, captivated by the way the artist had captured both vulnerability and power. She couldn't help but see herself in that woman. She had spent so many years hiding behind layers, trying to protect herself from the world. But now, like the woman in the painting, she felt as if she was ready to take off the veil, to show the world who she truly was, in all her complexity. As she left the gallery, the cool air of fall wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. She had felt something shift inside her, a renewed sense of purpose, a recognition that she was allowed to pursue her passions, to take up space in the world without apology. For so long, she had defined herself by what others needed from her. But now, she realized that it was time to redefine herself on her own terms. Anna didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt excited about the possibilities. She was ready to explore, to create, and to be open to whatever life might bring her way. That evening, after dinner, she sat down with a notebook, something she hadn't done in years. She began to write, not with any particular goal in mind, but simply to express herself. She wrote about her day at the gallery, about the painting that had touched her so deeply. She wrote about the changes she had gone through, about the things she had learned, and about the future she was beginning to see for herself. For the first time in a long time, Anna wrote without hesitation. She wrote without worrying about what anyone would think or whether it made sense. She simply allowed herself to pour her thoughts onto the page. When she finished, she closed the notebook and smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A start to something new. And that, she realized, was all she needed. Over the next few weeks, Anna found herself saying yes to things she had once said no to. She joined a local hiking group, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time for. She began taking weekend trips to nearby towns, exploring new places and meeting new people. It felt liberating, like she was rediscovering the world and herself at the same time. But there were still moments, fleeting and unexpected, when the weight of the past would return. When she would think about James or wonder if she had truly forgiven him, or herself. She would lie awake at night, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. But those moments were becoming less frequent. And when they came, Anna would take a deep breath, remind herself of the work she had done, and refocus on the present. It was one quiet Saturday afternoon when she received a message from her daughter, Lily, who was now in her sophomore year of college. Anna had raised her daughter to be independent, strong, and confident. But as she read Lily's message, Anna couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and joy. Lily had grown into a woman who was carving her own path, and Anna couldn't have been more proud of her. "I've been thinking about you, Mom," the message began. "I know it's been a while since we've talked about this, but I think I'm ready to have a conversation about Dad. I've been doing some thinking, and I think I finally understand why things turned out the way they did." Anna felt a lump form in her throat as she read those words. Her daughter, the person she had tried so hard to protect, was finally ready to confront the past too. It was a big step, one that Anna hadn't expected, but it felt like the next part of the healing process, both for her daughter and for herself. She typed a quick reply, her fingers moving quickly over the keys. "I'm here, Lily. Whenever you're ready, we'll talk. I love you." As she hit send, Anna realized something important. Healing wasn't a solitary journey. It was something that, with time and effort, she could share with the people she loved most. And as she continued on this new path, she knew she wasn't alone. She was stronger than she had ever been before, and she was ready to face whatever came next. Anna woke to the soft hum of her alarm, the morning light filtering through the curtains, casting a gentle glow across her room. For a brief moment, she lay there, savoring the stillness of the morning before the demands of the day arrived. It was a quiet Saturday, one that promised nothing but the possibility of calm. Yet, despite the calm, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something was simmering beneath the surface. She had spent so much time focusing on the present, the now, but the past still had its hold on her. She sat up and looked out the window, her eyes drawn to the view of the street below. The leaves were changing, the trees now dressed in shades of gold and red, signaling the deepening of fall. Anna felt a sense of nostalgia wash over her. Fall had always been a time of change for her, a time when things felt like they could begin again. Yet, despite the beauty of the season, there was something lingering, a question that had been gnawing at her ever since her meeting with James. Had she truly forgiven him? Had she forgiven herself? The thought of James still brought with it an undeniable pull. Even after everything, even after all these years, he had been a significant part of her life. The memories they shared, the dreams they once built together, still echoed in the corners of her mind. She had spent so long burying the past, but now, it was as if it had resurfaced, demanding attention. That afternoon, Anna sat at her kitchen table, sipping her tea as she flipped through a photo album she had pulled from the shelf. The images within were filled with laughter, innocence, and love, snapshots of a time when life seemed simpler. There were photos of her and James on their wedding day, their young faces brimming with hope and promise. Photos of family vacations, of birthdays, of holidays spent together. But as she turned each page, she couldn't help but notice the gradual shift, the change in their expressions, the distance in their eyes. It wasn't until the last few pages that the cracks in their relationship were fully visible, the pain evident in the space between them. She lingered on one particular photo, a picture of them sitting on the porch of their old house, their daughter sitting between them, smiling for the camera. It was a photo that had once been full of hope, but now, it felt heavy with unspoken words. Anna traced her finger over the image, feeling the weight of all the years that had passed since it was taken. A sigh escaped her lips as she closed the album, pushing it away from her. She didn't need to dwell on the past, she told herself. She had already confronted it. But the echoes of those memories were hard to ignore. She had thought she could simply leave them behind, but they lingered, like an old song that refused to fade from her mind. That evening, Anna decided to take a walk. It was the kind of evening where the air was cool but not too chilly, where the sky was painted with hues of purple and orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. She loved walking through her neighborhood, the familiar sights and sounds grounding her, offering a sense of comfort. She walked slowly, letting her thoughts drift as she moved through the streets she had called home for so long. As she walked, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw that it was a message from her daughter, Lily. "Mom, I've been thinking about what we talked about the other day. I think I'm ready to talk about Dad now. I don't know if you're ready for this, but I think it's time we talked about the things we've never really said." Anna stopped in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. She hadn't expected this so soon. She had known Lily had been processing her own feelings about the past, but this was a step Anna wasn't entirely prepared for. Her daughter had always been strong, always seemed so certain about things. But now, it seemed that the weight of their family's history was catching up with her as well. Anna stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. She had spent so much of her life protecting Lily, trying to shield her from the hurt and the heartbreak of her failed marriage. But now, it seemed her daughter was ready to face it head-on, to unpack the emotions that had been left unspoken for so long. Anna felt a pang of guilt. Had she done enough to help Lily understand? Had she shielded her too much? And what about James? Had he ever truly tried to make amends with their daughter? She took a deep breath and typed her response. I'm here, Lily. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here. We'll do this together. Anna hit send and continued her walk, the weight of the conversation still heavy in her chest. The world around her seemed to blur as she pondered the journey her daughter was about to embark on. For so long, Anna had focused on her own healing, her own path forward. But now, she realized that healing was something that needed to be shared. Lily, too, had her own pain to work through. They both had. Later that night, after a quiet dinner alone, Anna sat in the dim light of her living room. She thought back to her conversation with Margaret, how Margaret had told her that healing wasn't a solitary journey. It was something shared, something that could only be achieved by opening up, by confronting the pain instead of hiding from it. Maybe this was Anna's next step, allowing herself to truly face the weight of her past, not just for her own sake, but for her daughter's as well. As she turned off the lights and crawled into bed, Anna thought about James. The past still lingered in the shadows, waiting to be fully addressed. There was still so much she had to work through, so many pieces to the puzzle that didn't quite fit. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to confront it. The memories of James, of the life they had built together, would always be a part of her. But they didn't define her anymore. She was ready to face them, to allow them their place, and then move on. The journey of healing wasn't linear. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always clear. But Anna knew one thing for sure: she was no longer running from her past. She was facing it, with courage and acceptance, and she was learning to forgive, both him and herself. Tomorrow would come, and she would be ready. Anna woke up to a quiet morning, the kind that felt peaceful, almost sacred. The sound of birds outside her window was the first thing that greeted her as she stretched and pulled the covers off. She had always been an early riser, but lately mornings had become a sacred space, a time when she could breathe, think, and reflect on where her life was going. There was something about the solitude of the morning hours that made her feel more connected to herself than anything else. After a cup of coffee and some quiet time with her thoughts, she set about her usual routine. But today, something was different. She had been thinking a lot about Lily's message from the night before. Her daughter, who had grown into such a strong, independent young woman, was finally ready to confront the past. Anna had always tried to protect her from the pain of the divorce, but now, she realized that shielding her had only delayed the inevitable. It was time for them to talk, really talk, about everything that had happened, about James, and about the things left unsaid. She knew this conversation would not be easy. For years, she had carried the guilt of how their family had fallen apart. Lily had been just a child when the divorce happened, and Anna had always felt like she needed to protect her from the pain of knowing the full truth. But Lily was no longer a child. She was a young woman, capable of understanding the complexities of their past. And Anna knew that the only way forward for both of them was to finally face the past head-on. That afternoon, Anna found herself pacing the living room, phone in hand. She had already texted Lily, confirming that they would talk later that evening, but the anticipation made her heart race. She wasn't sure if she was ready for the conversation. Could she give Lily the answers she needed without opening up wounds that were still raw for her? As the time drew closer, Anna took a deep breath and sat down at the kitchen table. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on her breathing, trying to calm her nerves. This was going to be hard, but it was necessary. She had spent so many years pretending that everything was fine, that the past was behind them. But now she understood that healing wasn't about pretending, it was about being honest, even when it was painful. The phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was Lily. "Are you ready to talk, Mom?" the message read. Anna stared at the screen for a moment before replying. "Yes. Let's talk." When they finally spoke, Anna's heart was pounding. Her daughter's voice, calm and steady, seemed so much older than the last time they had talked about the divorce. It was clear that Lily had been processing her emotions for a while. The conversation started slowly, with small talk, but soon, Lily asked the question Anna had been expecting. "Mom," Lily said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about Dad, about everything that happened. I think I finally understand some things now, but there are other things I'm still confused about. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I feel like I need to understand it more. What happened between you two?" Anna's breath caught in her throat. It was the question she had feared for so long. The question that, until now, she had kept buried deep inside. She had avoided it, unsure of how to answer. But now, the time had come. She couldn't avoid it any longer. She hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice soft but firm. I know this must be difficult for you, Lily. I've always tried to protect you from the full story. But the truth is, your dad and I we weren't right for each other anymore. We both tried for a while, but in the end, we drifted apart. It wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of things. Misunderstandings, unmet needs, and maybe even the simple fact that we had changed as people. It wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. Lily was silent for a moment, and Anna could almost hear her processing the words. Then her daughter spoke again, her voice tinged with a mix of curiosity and sadness. Do you think he regrets it? Do you think he's sorry? Anna paused, the question hitting her harder than she had expected. James had said he regretted the way things had ended, but did he really understand the depth of their pain? She wasn't sure. He had his own journey to take, his own process of healing, and she had hers. But she didn't know if he would ever truly understand. I think James has regret, yes, Anna said slowly. But I also think he's had his own pain to deal with. Regret doesn't always mean we can fix things, Lily. Sometimes, it just means we have to live with what happened and learn from it. I think he's sorry in his own way, but that doesn't mean things will ever go back to the way they were. There was another long pause. Then Lily spoke again, her voice more vulnerable than before. I've always wanted to understand why it all fell apart, why you and Dad couldn't make it work. I think part of me blamed him for everything, but I see now that it wasn't just him. It was both of you. It just makes me sad, Mom. We all deserved better. Anna's heart broke at her daughter's words. She had always known that Lily had carried the weight of their broken marriage, but hearing it from her now, hearing her acknowledge the pain, made everything feel more real. Anna had done everything she could to protect her, but sometimes, the weight of the truth was too much to shield them from. I know, sweetheart, Anna said softly. We both deserved better. But sometimes life doesn't work out the way we expect it to. And that's okay. What matters now is that we keep moving forward together. We can't change the past, but we can create a better future. The conversation continued for another hour, weaving through memories, questions, and realizations. As they spoke, Anna felt a sense of relief. It wasn't the conversation she had imagined, but it was the one they both needed. Lily was finally ready to face the past, to acknowledge the pain, and to let go of the anger she had held for so long. And Anna, in turn, was ready to give her daughter the space to heal, to understand, and to move forward. As the conversation came to a close, Lily's voice was more certain. Thank you, Mom. I feel like I finally understand things. I know it wasn't easy for you, and I just want you to know I don't blame you. I'm glad we could talk about it. Anna smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride. I'm glad too, Lily. I love you. We're in this together. As she hung up the phone, Anna felt a quiet peace settle over her. The weight of the past hadn't disappeared, but it had become easier to bear. She had faced it, and so had Lily. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but it was theirs to walk together. Anna stood up from the chair, feeling a renewed sense of strength. The journey of healing, of forgiveness, and of moving forward was far from over, but for the first time, she felt ready for whatever came next. The months that followed were a steady stream of small, but meaningful changes. Anna had come a long way from the woman who had once found herself caught in the overwhelming tide of her past. Now she stood at the edge of something new, something she hadn't anticipated, yet something she had always deserved. It wasn't a new relationship, a career shift, or a grand adventure. It was simply life, hers at last, unfolding in ways she hadn't expected. Her relationship with Lily had grown stronger, the bridge between them fortified by the conversations they had so openly shared. For years, Anna had tried to protect her daughter from the pain of their broken family, but now she understood that sometimes, the only way to move forward was to face the truth. The truth had opened a door for both of them, a door that led to healing, to forgiveness, and to understanding. Even the occasional thoughts of James no longer stung like they once did. He had become a part of her past, a chapter that, while important, no longer held dominion over her emotions. The closure she had sought was no longer something she needed from him. It was something she had found in herself. The weight of regret, the burden of guilt, and the knots of resentment she had carried for so long were lighter now. Anna had learned the difficult art of releasing what was out of her control, and with each passing day, she was learning to embrace the freedom that came with it. One crisp afternoon in the early days of spring, Anna decided to take a trip to a small cafe that had recently opened up in the heart of the town. It had a quaint charm, with its old-fashioned decor, mismatched chairs, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. She had passed by it a few times before, but had never stopped in, until today. As she entered, the soft sound of acoustic music filled the space, and the sight of a few familiar faces made her feel an unexpected sense of belonging. She ordered her usual, a cappuccino, and found a seat by the window. The cafe's warmth embraced her, as if welcoming her back to the world she had spent so long hiding from. It was in this small, unassuming space that she began to realize something important. She was no longer just existing. She was living. Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her reverie. It was a message from Margaret, her old friend. Margaret had been one of the first to notice the subtle shift in Anna after her meeting with James. They hadn't talked in a while, but Margaret had always been a voice of encouragement when Anna needed it most. "I saw you at the gallery the other day. I can see it, Anna. You're different, stronger, lighter. You've come so far. Let's get together soon and catch up, yeah? I've missed you." Anna smiled as she read the message, feeling a warmth spread through her. She had missed Margaret too. They had shared so much in their younger years, their conversations often circling around dreams and hopes, the shared belief that anything was possible. Now those conversations felt like they had the potential to return, only this time, they were rooted in reality, the kind of reality where dreams were built from the ground up, with no shortcuts and no illusions. She quickly typed a response. "I'd love that. Let's plan for next week. I think I'm finally ready to pick up where we left off." The days following her quiet cafe visit felt like a series of small revelations. Anna had always been so focused on what she was supposed to do, raising her children, managing her responsibilities, keeping the pieces of her life together. But now, she was letting go of the rigid structure she had built. She was creating something new, one decision at a time. Her relationship with Lily was flourishing. They spent weekends together, talking about their hopes for the future and the changes they both felt in their lives. It was no longer a mother-daughter relationship defined by dependency, but rather one rooted in mutual respect and understanding. They were partners in this new chapter, learning from each other in ways they hadn't before. At work, Anna had started taking on new projects, ones that challenged her in ways she hadn't expected. She was more confident, more willing to take risks, and less afraid of failure. She found herself volunteering for new initiatives, stepping into leadership roles, and offering her ideas with a conviction that surprised even herself. Her colleagues began to take notice, and with each compliment, Anna's sense of self-worth grew. She had always been capable, but now, she believed it. One evening, as she sat at her kitchen table, reading a book, there was a knock on the door. It was Lily, home from college for the weekend. She had called earlier to ask if they could talk. Anna put the book down, and as her daughter entered, Anna noticed something in her eyes, something different. It was a look of determination, of strength. Lily sat down across from her mother, her posture straight, but her voice hesitant. "Mom, there's something I've been thinking about for a while now," Lily began. "I've been reflecting on everything we've been through. And I think I'm ready to start letting go of my anger toward Dad. I don't know if I'll ever be able to completely forgive him for how everything went down, but I've realized that holding on to this anger isn't helping me. I can't keep letting it control me." Anna felt a tightness in her chest as she listened. She had known that Lily had been carrying a heavy burden for years, but hearing her daughter say these words was a relief. It was proof that the healing journey wasn't just something Anna had been going through. Lily was making her own way too. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart," Anna said softly. "I think it's important to let go of that anger, not for him, but for yourself. I think you're finally starting to see that. And I want you to know that you don't have to carry this alone. I'm here for you, just like I always have been." Lily smiled, the weight lifting from her shoulders. "Thanks, Mom. I know we've both been through a lot, but I think we're both finally ready to move forward." Anna nodded, a sense of peace settling in her heart. "We're ready, Lily. Together." That night, as Anna lay in bed, she thought about everything she had learned over the past few months. She had faced her past, reconciled with her memories, and let go of the pain that had held her captive for so long. She had found peace, not just with James, but with herself. And as she looked to the future, she felt a quiet sense of excitement. She had no idea where life would take her next, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was hers to walk, no longer burdened by the past, but illuminated by the promise of new beginnings. The journey wasn't over. But Anna knew, without a doubt, that the best part was yet to come.